Hello everyone. Today I want to talk about one of the most iconic actors to ever play a superhero, Christopher Reeve. He was a legendary actor and activist whose career was tragically cut short. Reeve is best known for his portrayal of Superman in the 1978 film and its sequels, where he brought the beloved comic book character to life with charm and sincerity. His performance set the standard for superhero portrayals for generations to come. Christopher Reeve was born on September 25, 1952, in New York City to Barbara Pitney Lamb, a journalist, and Franklin Dollier Reeve, 1928 to 2013, a teacher, novelist, poet, and scholar. Franklin and Barbara divorced in 1956, and she moved with Christopher and his younger brother to Princeton, New Jersey, where they attended Nassau Street School and later Princeton Country Day School, now called Princeton Day School. Both of Reeve's parents remarried. Reeve excelled academically, athletically, and on stage. He was on the honor roll and played soccer, baseball, tennis, and hockey. The Sportsmanship Award at Princeton Day School's Invitational Hockey Tournament was named in his honor. Reeve had a difficult relationship with his father, Franklin. In 1998, he wrote that his father's love for his children always seemed tied to performance, which led him to put pressure on himself to act older than he actually was in order to gain his father's approval. Between 1988 and 1995, the two barely spoke, but they reconciled after Reeve's paralyzing accident. Reeve's passion for acting began at age 9 when he was cast in an amateur production of The Yeoman of the Guard. By age 15, his love for the stage deepened during an apprenticeship at the Williamstown Theater Festival. After graduating from Princeton Day School in 1970, he initially planned to go straight to New York City to pursue acting. However, on his mother's advice, Reeve applied to colleges and was accepted into several prestigious institutions. He chose Cornell University to distance himself from the immediate temptation of acting in New York. While at Cornell, Reeve continued acting, playing roles in classic plays such as Waiting for Godot and The Winter's Tale. He later received a full summer contract with the San Diego Shakespeare Festival. His big break came when prominent New York agent Stark Heseltine spotted him and encouraged him to finish his education while preparing for a professional career. Reeve's dedication eventually led him to Juilliard, where he studied alongside Robin Williams, forming a close friendship that would last a lifetime. In 1974, Christopher Reeve played the role of Ben Harper in the soap opera Love of Life. In late 1975, he auditioned for the Broadway play A Matter of Gravity. Katharine Hepburn watched his audition and cast him as her character's grandson in the play. With Hepburn's influence over the CBS network, Reeve was able to coordinate the schedules of Love of Life and A Matter of Gravity, allowing him to do both. Due to his hectic schedule, Reeve often replaced meals with candy bars and coffee, leading to exhaustion and malnutrition. On the first night of the play, he entered the stage, said his first line, and promptly fainted. Hepburn turned to the audience and said, "This boy's a goddamn fool. He doesn't eat enough red meat." An understudy finished the play for him, and a doctor advised Reeve to eat a healthier diet. Despite the initial mishap, Reeve remained with the play throughout its year-long run and received very favorable reviews. Reeve and Hepburn became close during the production. She once told him, "You're going to be a big star, Christopher, and support me in my old age." He jokingly replied, "I can't wait that long." Some gossip columns even rumored a romance between the two. But Reeve said, "She was 67 and I was 22, but I thought that was quite an honor. I believe I was fairly close to what a child or grandchild might have been to her." Reeve mentioned that his father, who was a literature professor and attended many of the performances, was the person who most captivated Hepburn. When the play moved to Los Angeles in 1976, Reeve, much to Hepburn's disappointment, dropped out. Though they stayed in touch for years after the play's run, Reeve later regretted not staying closer, relying instead on sending messages back and forth. Reeve's first role in a Hollywood film was a small part as a junior officer in the 1978 naval submarine disaster movie Grey Lady Down, which starred Charlton Heston. He then acted in the play My Life at the Circle Repertory Company alongside his friend William Hurt. During the run of My Life, Stark Heseltine informed Reeve that he had been asked to audition for the leading role of Clark Kent/Superman in the big-budget film Superman, 1978. Lynn Stallmaster, the casting director, had placed Reeve's picture and resume at the top of the pile 3 separate times, only to have the producers discard it each time. Thanks to Stallmaster's persistent pleading, a meeting between director Richard Donner, producer Ilya Saukind, and Reeve was arranged. The morning after the meeting, Reeve received a 300-page script. He was excited that the script treated the subject matter seriously. With Donner's motto being verisimilitude, Reeve flew to London for a screen test, and during the flight, he learned that Marlon Brando would play Jor-El and Gene Hackman would portray Lex Luthor. Despite this, Reeve didn't think he had much of a chance. On the plane, he contemplated how he would approach the role. He later explained, by the late 1970s the masculine image had changed. It was now acceptable for a man to show gentleness and vulnerability. I felt that the new Superman ought to reflect that contemporary male image. Reeve based his portrayal of Clark Kent on Cary Grant's character in Bringing Up Baby. After the screen test, his driver told him, "I'm not supposed to tell you this, but you've got the part." Playing Superman was a significant challenge for the 24-year-old actor. While Reeve was 6 feet 4 inches, 193 centimeters, tall, he had a slim physique. To prepare for the role, he underwent an intense 2-month training regimen under the supervision of former British weightlifting champion David Prowse. His training included morning runs, 2 hours of weightlifting, and 90 minutes on the trampoline. Reeve added 30 pounds, 14 kilograms, of muscle to his slim 189-pound, 86 kilograms, frame. For Superman 3, 1983, he made even greater gains, but for Superman 4, The Quest for Peace, 1987, he focused more on cardiovascular workouts due to an emergency appendectomy in June 1986. Interestingly, Reeve was never a fan of Superman or comic books, although he had watched Adventures of Superman starring George Reeves. However, he found the role of Superman to be an appealing challenge, as it required playing 2 characters. "There must be some difference stylistically between Clark and Superman," he said. "Otherwise, you just have a pair of glasses standing in for a character." In the commentary for the director's edition of Superman 2, the Richard Donner cut, creative consultant Tom Mankiewicz shared how Reeve discussed playing both Superman and Clark Kent. Mankiewicz corrected him, explaining that Reeve was always playing Superman, and when portraying Clark Kent, he was Superman who was playing Clark Kent. Mankiewicz described it as a role within a role. The film, made without the use of computers for special effects, was the first attempt to show a person flying realistically. Roy Field, the film's optical supervisor, remarked, "There were many techniques used to make Superman fly, but the best special effect of all was Christopher Reeve himself. We discovered very early on that, being a glider pilot, he could hold his body aerodynamically. So when he got into the harness, the whole shot began to come alive." Superman grossed $300.2 million worldwide, unadjusted for inflation, and Reeve received widespread acclaim for his performance. Newsweek praised him, writing, "Christopher Reeve's entire performance is a delight, ridiculously good-looking, with a face as sharp and strong as an axe blade. His bumbling, fumbling Clark Kent and omnipotent Superman are simply 2 styles of gallantry and innocence." Reeve would go on to enjoy success in films such as Superman, Somewhere in Time, Death Trap, and Street Smart, as well as in the Superman sequels, before his tragic accident in 1995. These films demonstrated his versatility, from portraying the iconic superhero to taking on complex roles in thrillers, dramas, and comedies. Reeve began horseback riding in 1985 after learning to ride for the film Anna Karenina. Initially allergic to horses, he took antihistamines to manage his symptoms. He trained on Martha's Vineyard, and by 1989, he had begun eventing. Over time, his allergies disappeared. Reeve had previously sustained leg injuries as a teenager while skiing, and in March 1987, he broke 3 ribs in a riding accident, which he described on The Tonight Show. In 1994, Reeve purchased a 12-year-old American thoroughbred horse named Eastern Express, nicknamed Buck, while filming Village of the Damned. He trained with Buck and planned to compete in training-level events in 1995, with hopes of advancing to preliminary events in 1996. However, on May 27, 1995, during a competition, Reeve's horse made a refusal at the 3rd fence jump, coming to an abrupt stop. Reeve fell forward off the horse, his hands tangled in the reins. The bridle and bit were pulled off the horse, and Reeve landed headfirst on the far side of the fence, shattering his 1st and 2nd vertebrae. The resulting cervical spinal injury paralyzed him from the neck down and stopped his breathing. Paramedics arrived within 3 minutes and immediately worked to get air into his lungs. He was initially taken to a local hospital, then flown by helicopter to the University of Virginia Medical Center. Reeve had no recollection of the accident. After 5 days of being heavily medicated and delirious, Reeve regained full consciousness. His doctor explained that his 1st and 2nd cervical vertebrae had been destroyed and his spinal cord severely damaged. He was paralyzed from the neck down and unable to breathe without a ventilator. Reeve's initial thoughts upon hearing the extent of his injuries were that he had ruined his life, would be a burden to his family, and that it might be best to slip away. He mouthed to his wife, Dana, "Maybe we should let me go." She tearfully replied, "I will support whatever you want to do because this is your life and your decision. But I want you to know that I'll be with you for the long haul no matter what. You're still you, and I love you." In what Dana would later describe as a sales ploy, she added that if he still wanted to die in 2 years, they could reconsider the question. After this conversation and following visits from his children, where he realized how much they still needed him, Reeve agreed to undergo life-saving surgery and treatment for pneumonia. He never again considered euthanasia as an option. Reeve experienced deep anguish during his time in the ICU, particularly when he was alone at night. As he awaited an operation in June 1995 to stabilize his spine, He recalled how frightening the prospect was. I already knew that I had only a 50-50 chance of surviving the surgery. Then, at a particularly bleak moment, the door suddenly flew open, and a squat man in a blue scrub hat, yellow surgical gown, and glasses burst in, speaking in a Russian accent. The man announced that he was a proctologist and was there to perform a rectal exam on Reeve. It was Robin Williams, reprising his character from the film 9 Months. Reeve later wrote, "For the first time since the accident, I laughed. My old friend helped me realize that somehow, I was going to be okay." In addition to visits from friends and family, Reeve received over 400,000 letters from around the world, which brought him great comfort during his recovery. After spending a month in the hospital, Reeve continued his recovery with 5 months at the Kessler Rehabilitation Center in West Orange, New Jersey. There, he learned skills such as operating his sip-and-puff electric wheelchair, which he controlled by blowing air through a straw. In his autobiography Still Me, he described how he initially struggled to face the reality of his disability. Tasks like sitting strapped into a wheelchair or taking a shower were terrifying at first. However, Reeve developed a deep fondness for many of the staff at Kessler, and through conversations with other patients, he gradually began to see himself as part of the disabled community. In the first few months after the accident, Reeve relied on a ventilator connected to his neck via a tracheostomy tube to breathe. With therapy and practice, he eventually developed the ability to breathe on his own for up to 90 minutes at a time. Reeve dedicated 4 to 5 hours a day to exercise, using specialized machines to stimulate his muscles and prevent muscle atrophy and osteoporosis. He believed that intense physical therapy could help regenerate the nervous system and wanted his body to be strong enough to support itself if a cure for paralysis was found. By 2000, Reeve began to regain some movement in his fingers and other parts of his body. By 2002, he reported that he could sense hot and cold temperatures on 65% of his body. His doctors were surprised by his progress, which they attributed to his rigorous exercise regimen. In early October 2004, Reeve was being treated for an infected pressure ulcer that had led to sepsis, a complication he had experienced multiple times before. On October 4, 2004, he made his final public appearance, speaking at the Rehabilitation Institute of Chicago. On October 9, 2004, Reeve attended his son Will's hockey game. Later that night, after receiving an antibiotic for the infection, he went into cardiac arrest and fell into a coma. He was taken to Northern Westchester Hospital in Mount Kisco, New York. 18 hours later, on October 10, 2004, Reeve passed away at the age of 52. No autopsy was performed. However, both his wife Dana and his doctor, John McDonald, believed that an adverse reaction to the drug caused his death.